I deleted my heart, and I really want it back. I don't wanna feel like I might be a sociopath. I deleted my heart. I was young and impulsive, and I would download another, but I'm afraid it wouldn't fit. I deleted my heart. 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 Heart.
We love that umbrella guy. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Under my umbrella.
All right, there we go. Man, I got knocked out for a minute there. That's crazy, isn't it? Every day, some days I'm convinced that this stuff just doesn't want to work right. You know what I mean? You know what's crazy? I test my mic beforehand. So, like when I say, "Hey, I'm setting up my sound," I actually did a mic test and everything, and then when I tried to go live, bam, down. Thank you, baby YouTube. Sometimes I feel like maybe certain subjects they don't want talked about. Isn't that amazing? Were you muted? No, no, I wasn't muted. I actually had to go in. So I set up through. I have three mic redundancies basically. I go in through a soundboard, which is normally how I set up. I have an alternate, so I can go in through it's jacked in through a cable, and then I can go in through a third way. So two ways wouldn't work on if there's a mic screw up. If the mic itself dies, then nothing works. That's only happened to me once. That happened to me during the Depp trial. I actually bought an extra microphone in case it ever happens again. But if one of the sides goes down, that's a problem on my setup. If two go down, that's something else, and 2 of them are down. Basically, I had to strip it out of the soundboard, and I had to strip it out of, cable setup, so I had to go through a 3rd setup. Like I said, I've got 3 ways the mic sets up. I figured this out over time, when we've had problems. It's just weird stuff, you never know, and it's not on this side of it. It's basically that's why, I disappeared for a minute, why I became a disappearing icon. But anyway, we are back now, at least for the present. We'll see how long that lasts. I hope you folks are doing excellently, by the way. That was very weird. Weird way to start the week, right? What's up, Fallen Hero? Thank you for the gifted membership, by the way. I appreciate that. It's been a crazy one. Like charting this Dan Wooten insanity has been so nuts. And it just keeps getting bigger. Now, if you haven't kept up with any of this, you may not realize that, oh, Danny boy, he's actually been asking for quite a bit of monies, quite a bit. He says, his own words, he says, well, here, let's just pull it up so you can see where he's at. And I want to point out the hypocrisy to it before we get into the brand new stuff. I like to remind people of this. I do not believe in listen and believe, never have. Don't want to make that ever a habit, but I do find a certain joy in watching listen and believers crashing hard. As we've predicted for years, they will fall, and they will fall by accusation. They always do. When they do, people like Dan Wooten are probably the worst of the worst, because not only they're not, see, some people fall into a category where if they were somebody that was targeted in their life, of course, they may listen to other people. They may be manipulated into believing. It's a hard lesson. I don't fault people like that. I do fault, however, people like Dan Wooten, who are not only now he claims he's a victim after accusations came out about him. I mean, there's been so much stuff that has popped up with it, but he politicizes it too. He says, well, this is actually just the far left trying to cancel me, or a bunch of crazies online or whatever, Now it's actually worked out for him so far. He's managed 36,000 pounds. I mean, that's 24% of his stated goal of 150,000, but still, I mean, he's knocking it back. What's up, Blue, by the way? Thanks for the 7 months there. Hello, Tug Mods and Tuggernauts. Well, hey there, by the way. Hey there. Now, I want to read you one part of this that I find so just hypocritical before we start on the brand new. There is brand new stuff with this. So, like I said, there's a 3rd part that actually came up. But Dan Wooten, in his discussion of all of this, he talks about fighting the current state of social media, which I actually agree with this statement. But what I don't agree with is Dan Wooten and his hypocrisy of putting this out there, because Dan Wooten, for again half a decade, he didn't, one man alone, over half a decade of targeting, just one man alone, and then just so many other people have fallen into that Dan Wooten targeting too. He doesn't, and again, when he did this, he wasn't regurgitating allegations just to say. He was aligning them with the express intent of destroying someone's life. It's one thing for a place to say, hey, these are the allegations out there. I actually think it's good to tell people what someone is accused of, strip away the nonsense and actually show it. Because as I've learned over time, you'll have more and more they'll pick it up and it rolls. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, and it comes up with the most insane nonsense. So it's good to tell people, hey, this is what's happening, but also to remind people, yeah, you don't need to destroy this person for it. I can pretty much guarantee you, anytime their accusations come up, Might as well talk about it. In fact, actually, I had this really weird incident one time. It made sense. There was a voice actor that was accused. This was a voice actor that had somebody come out on, I can't remember. I think it was Reddit. They came out and they launched a bunch of accusations against them. It was around 2020. I talked about those, and when we talked about it, other people did too as well. But when we talked about it, it knocked those accusations offline. It revealed that they were fake. I mean, 100%. It destroyed the false accusations because it called out the person doing it. But the interesting thing was, the person that was accused, they thanked me. They said, hey, you and other people. Again, I'm not saying this for credit, just saying this as a point. You and other people expose this as fake. Now, would you mind taking the videos and stuff offline? Because now that it's been exposed, only show the exposed videos and not the other ones. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So going back and showing where they're exposed, that's good. At a certain point, you may have to go back and rectify the situation. You don't want to be the one amplifying falsity, but you definitely want to be the one that's noting it, and potentially it can be real. I mean, again, Hollywood is filled with monsters. But Dan Wooten, in his hypocrisy, he says this while he's trying to make money. We must fight against the current state of social media, where any allegation can be made in an attempt to get someone on the right. You notice there, it's the right canceled, and it's impossible to defend yourself. Now, I would say all groups eat the other side, and sometimes they eat themselves. I will say that as far as canceling others, embracing just false allegations, there is, I mean, the mainstream legacy media is they are just they are dominant on that. And I can't blame it on one side, because people like Dan Wooten, he's telling you, hey, I'm on this side here, and Dan Wooten spent forever. But yeah, I mean, they're all notorious for it. So saying the right, nah, let's just say legacy media. This is even the case when they have claimed that I've engaged in criminal activity, when I've never been arrested, interviewed, or charged in any respect, and the allegations against me are rushed to judgment before due process, thanks to coordinated dark forces in online pylons, is destroying democracy. Dan Wooten 2023 versus Dan Wooten 2018, where the dog pile, he made it clear in the dog pile again that, yeah, accuse of whatever and destroy. So we had a third part come up. Now, this third part, again, is brand new, just popped up. I've been waiting on it all day because I knew it was going to happen. What's up, Rocket Ruin? Thanks. If I just said hi to you and sending my loves, as always, cheers. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated. I appreciate you too, my friend. For sure. I appreciate all of you. All of you. Now, this subject, I will say, if you like the channel, definitely consider backing. Why? Because this subject, yeah, apparently it is a no-go. You are, they'll run ads, but they ain't running them for you. I knew it would be like that, but just say it. You like the channel? Think about supporting it if you want to. If not, buckle up. Here we go. So Byline Times drops their third installment here. Now, the first installment was an overview of a dozen plus accusers. You had 6 of them. We find out through 1 and 2. We have 6 of them that are reportedly ex-colleagues. They have been, or at least 6 of them so far. They have been locked in under non-disclosure agreements. That's the allegations there. Horrible stuff. I mean, some terrible things. But one of the allegations, a big, damning one for him, is that for years now, Dan Wooten has been using an alias online. He actually was using 2 aliases online. He was using Martin Branning, and he was using a female one. I can't remember, to catfish people in. to get them to show explicits. And the amount of money, it wasn't just that behavior that was kind of wow. It was also the amount of money that gives pause, because he reportedly was offering up to 30,000 pounds to people. Again, if he wanted, people to do that, their escorts, adult entertainment industry, the entire industry there is rife with people that do that for a fraction of that cost. So for somebody to do that, and there were allegations that he was doing that to employees of the places that he was at and more. So we're going to have our third part here, the Martin Branning first victim. That would be the false name that he was using. What's up, Spoutable Destroyer? Things with the two. Amber might have learned tricks from Dan. It sounds like they all went to the same camp of not just spreading allegations, but damage control after the fact, doesn't it? I mean, there is a go-to. It's almost like a manual that's been written. When you get accused, this is the page you flip to, and some of them play it just like a playbook. And the saddest part about that is it always works. And again, like I said, I'm not saying I believe anything that is noted about Dan Wooten. I don't. I haven't seen any proof. I've heard allegations, but in Dan Wooten's world that he created, the world that we see now, the one he supposedly stands against because he stands against woke culture. Yeah, in that world that he helped create, all of this is evidence of guilt. It's always been. So, due process. What was that now? So anyway, Martin Branning, his first victim. In the third part of the 3-year special investigation, Byline Times details the trauma of a man controlled for 10 years by Martin Branning, the pseudonym of TV presenter Dan Wooten. And again, the two people here, I'm very curious. I have not yet, I know that the same people here, they worked for some of the organizations that Dan Wooten also worked for, but I don't know if they were ex-colleagues of him. I would actually like some clarification on that too. But here we go. So, editor's note. Of course, some of this, it's graphic content. Readers may find some of the graphic content of this article distressing. Martin Branning blackmailed the partner of a Murdoch journalist into making a covert sex video, later found hidden behind the washing machine of GB News star Dan Wooten, Byline Times can reveal. Now, we heard about that, by the way. So we heard about this from the boyfriend or ex-boyfriend of Wooten, the one that he has now put a bullseye on. He put it on spectacular fashion. He went out, he did his 6-minute discussion about how his life is being destroyed. And during that discussion, he went all out. He was saying that guy, actually, he is a monster. He's the one that did all of this to me. But Branning, unmasked last week by the newspaper as an online alias used by Wooten, threatened to send, we're going to say, compromising material. The partner, threatened to send compromising the partner. Okay, there we go. The partner to their family, to their employers, and their Facebook friends if they did not cooperate. Now that's a heavy allegation right there. I mean, that kind of allegation with blackmail material and more. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that it shouldn't just give you pause. I got a kid coming in. Give me 1 second here. Hey, kiddo. Hey, what are you doing?
One honey bun. I like all the honey buns.
You want a honey bun? I can't get you a honey bun right now. I tell you what, though, you can have some of this. You want a drink? I'll get you one in a little bit, okay? How's that sound? I'll get you one in a little bit, okay? Go play your. Hey, I don't have it right now. I'll get it later. Hey, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm going to turn on something. I got to get somebody something because they're pretty pleasing me and I can't. How could you turn down that little voice, right? Can you say that? Can you say pretty please?
Pretty please.
See, so I'm going to turn on something real quick. I'll be right back, though. Okay, I'm going to turn on Isaac Baruch. He's longer than a minute. So excuse me. I will be right back. Apologies. Can you say thank you, AJ Stone? By the way,
Thank you.
thank you for 20 gifted
You're
memberships.
funny.
Oh, I'm funny, huh? Okay. Well, I'll be right back. I'm going to just turn this on just for a buffer.
I hate fire.
Yeah, I hate fire too. Come on, let's go get it real fast. Let's go.
Ability, heal, and move on. And for Johnny, you know, his family has been completely wrecked by all of this stuff, and it's not fair. It's not right what she did and what happened for so many people to get affected from this. It's insane.
And Mr. Baruch,
how this happened.
And Mr. Baruch, if in fact she's telling the truth, and if in fact Mr. Depp, who has engaged in enormous
Right. Apologies for that one. Dad duty. You know, dad duty always trumps it all. So anyway, let's get back to what we were doing here. I need to make a thing that basically, says technical difficulty. Be right back. Yeah. All right. So let's continue here. So again, the unmasked name. Let me just start at the beginning of this, just a note, so it's all in one place. So in the third part of Byline News, special investigation, they're noting that the Martin Branning, this would be the first victim of Martin Branning. They're saying when he was unmasked, there were threats to send this compromising material to partner to their family, employers, and Facebook friends if they did not cooperate with what was going on. The resulting film that was later discovered on a black hard drive in a padlocked holdall in Wootton's East London home by his former boyfriend, Alex Truby, whose tweets on the 12th of July about the discovery have now been viewed around 17 million times. So to tell you that this story is actually getting a lot of attention, I mean, that is the understatement of the century. It is definitely getting a lot of attention. Now they miss to be clear about that too. I think this should always be explained. When they say viewed 17 million times, no, it's been embedded in around 17 million different timelines. When you're scrolling through, you know how like you're scrolling online, you see something pass by. That's what it is. So you have the potential for a view there. But as far as views, we don't know how many clicks there on it, but that much attention, that's a lot. That is a bombshell amount. It's crazy to get that. To give you some perspective on that, typically a large Elon Musk post will get around 4 million embedded hits. So you're talking about something that it's over 4 times more than a large Elon. As the owner, he's directing traffic to himself. So that says you're being exposed on a massive scale. What's up, Wolfkinder? Thanks for 2. Tug, dark forces merge. Maybe like the Clout Goblin. That would be funny. Oh, put the Clout Goblin out there. Dark forces. Hashtag dark forces. Oh my God, that would actually be hilarious. Maybe I do need to do that. I mean, I do have the Clout Goblin already set. Oh my God. There's so many. It's funny laughing at people like a Dan Wooten too. And it's so sad, the background that we're talking about, because these are horrendous situations. One of these people is telling the truth too. Here's your problem here. One of these people, when they're back and forth, well, I mean, there's 3 scenarios. Either the initial accuser is telling the truth and Dan Wooten's a monster. Dan Wooten's telling the truth. The other person's a monster. Or they've just decided to go into a free-for-all and destroy one another. And there actually wasn't a monster at all. You never really know. But I'm going to say it's probably one of two. Hey, Gwen, thanks for the 8 months. Thank you for very much for the gifted memberships. Well, AJ Stone, thanks, AJ. And again, Fallen Hero dropped one in there too. AJ, though, thank you, my friend. So Wootton has since used Primetime Nightly GB News show to attack Mr. Truby's account as an untrue story, claiming to be a target of a smear campaign by nefarious players and denying criminal behavior, but not to being connected to Branning. Yeah, now I don't like the wording of what they're saying there. They worded it kind of clunky. But what they're saying is that Dan Wooten actually hasn't denied the fact that this alias is out there. He's said that there's this conspiracy that has been blaming him for all types of things. But as far as that alias is concerned, that name, he's never said anything about it at all. And I find that to be interesting. You know, again, with his blanket statement, he in fact left him wiggle room in his denial to come back and say, well, I never really denied that, did I? You know, because he was saying, he said, you know, everybody's made mistakes, blah, blah, blah. And again, what are those mistakes? What are those errors in judgment in the past? You know, is he talking about being an a-hole online? Is he talking about destroying people in the media? Or is he just leaving himself a blanket or a quote unquote umbrella statement? Oh man, umbrella's misused. But is he using an umbrella statement to keep himself out of trouble? Like my detective cigar. Today, however, in the third part of the 3-year special investigation into Wooten's private and personal conduct, the victim forced to make the video reveals how Branning drove him to the brink of, we're going to say, ending himself with a 10-year campaign of anonymous coercion. So the allegation with this one is you had the allegations that came out. That would be the ex of Wootton said, hey, there's this tape out there. It was made without consent. This person was an ex-employee of the same place that Wootton was working at. So a colleague at the time. There was a tape made without their consent. There was also a detailed chat log of this where Martin Branning was listed, you know, as person that was putting that together. Well, they're saying that the person that's on that video, they were harassed to the point of Minecrafting themselves as part of a decade-long campaign of anonymous coercion. The partner, a man whose identity Byline Times is protecting, I very much, you know, I know people get mad about the about anonymous sourcing, by the way. I get it. I use anonymous sourcing sometimes. You have to. But in this case, yeah, I could very much understand why you would do that and why you would protect this person. But the partner here, whose identity is protected, but who says that he will give evidence to the Metro PD, said the fallout from this went on for years. I literally quit my London life. I lost everything. I went into the depths of depression. I definitely considered Minecrafting. I didn't want to be around anymore. I blame myself for the whole situation. I am only coming to terms with it now. Now I want to get it sorted out. Now you can only imagine how that would be too. I watch shows like Succession, you know, shows like, say, Suits, or, you know, shows with some diabolical characters in them. And they would do situations, something like this. This sounds like the plot line to a show. The only problem is, and people treat it like it's a plot line to a show, to be honest. You know, when we look at this stuff, that's exactly how modern social media is taken on. And that's because of the extreme behavior that we see. Unfortunately, these aren't plot lines to shows. If this did indeed happen, we are talking about a person whose life was train, and it's so easy these days to have your life derailed by anything. But you can imagine, in a workplace, somebody having this unknown, having this tape, something that they could blackmail you with. I mean, that is complete and utter control, especially when you think about, we're talking about homosexuals here. This is the way, his victims that have come out, quote unquote victims, the allegations there, they've all been about male victims. And that is a very quick way to destroy somebody. It's very unfair, but let's be honest. A tape like that coming out with heterosexuals, that's damning and destructive. But it coming out male, I mean, it's male victims, unfortunately, they're treated so terribly in today's society, even now. So the courier would come with a video camera. The victim revealed how Branning started sending him emails, some of which this newspaper is publishing for the first time today. Whoa, wait, I haven't read this yet. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. We have emails? I haven't even read this yet. It just came out. So when I'm talking about it, I looked through, I was like, holy crap, this is the Martin Branning thing. Whoa, I didn't even realize it had an email. That's going to get crazy there. Shortly after, the man, through his partner, met Wootton at a London members club in 2008 and continued until 2018. 2018, by the way, is a very important year when we're talking about this stuff because it highlights the hypocrisy to all of this, the hypocrisy there. And again, these are allegations, but the hypocrisy standard here is that Dan Wooten was flagging a listen and believe campaign. He was in the midst of Me Too. He was empowering that, going after a victim. That's how we find out from, years later. But at the same time, behind the scenes, there's all these allegations that during the midst of this, you had a wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf that was creating victims and destroying multiple lives. And there are a lot of those. I keep telling people, beware of folks that tell you, quote unquote, ally. Those people like, there's so many of the cancel culture paraders. That clip I show with the sexy waffle thing? That's somebody making an allegation against one of the AHers saying, oh, yeah, he was right in there and stuff. Meanwhile, at the behind everything, he was telling me to do all kinds of nasty, nasty stuff. So beware. The Branning emails claim to be from a go-between on behalf of an unnamed but interested third party, offering the man whom Wootton knew at the time was in financial trouble up to £5,000 a week for modeling and other work. With other work, I always hate that. That's a legal way around things, by the way. When they're saying, oh, yeah, we're going to offer you other work. Oh, you're going to have me put up some drywalling? No, of course not. Of course not. We're not talking about that. It's so shady, though. And what's really crazy is the same people that are giving Dan Wooten money right now. They're the same people that would absolutely demolish the adult entertainment industry, talking about how it's exploitation, how all the awful things they do with, with ads of modeling and more. And yet these allegations here, and again, it's not the believing of allegations, it's the hypocrisy standard to all of it. So in an email, June 26, 2008, Branning wrote, quote, I had your email and a couple of pics of you passed along to me because I heard you might be interested in making some extra cash through the sort of modeling and other work I've got on offer. Don't know if the person mentioned it to you, but I'd be really keen to chat with you further. All completely confidential, of course. Now here, this would be part of the problem too. If you're secretly taping folks, if you're offering them never trust any. Again, you may be able to sue. Let's just say in a perfect world, you're able to go in and after years of something going on, you could right the wrong that was done. You could expose somebody as a monster. It's still going to destroy your life. It will. And again, is that fair? No, but that's the way life is. When we don't talk about it in fair and unfair. It's simply that is how it is. Quiz by the man who asked Branning, who had shared his details. Branning followed on June 27th by writing, well, look, it's someone who knows you through the members club, but I always promise never to pass on those details because this person has worked for me in the past. So right here, it actually sets up something that could be a problem too, because it's not just some random person out there. This is somebody, again, the allegation goes, they know they're down on their luck. They promise them confidentiality. They court them in this. They're like, hey, easy money. And that's a lot of money, by the way. 5,000 pounds a week. Holy crap, man. I don't know how much money the cost of living in like where you are is, but a good paying job out here, like in the boonies, a really good paying job. You may be talking about a bring home of $1,000 a week. That's a really good paying job. Now you can go outside, you can go to a larger place and they have start outs of, $17 an hour. But out here in the sticks, man, that's a lot of money. So 5,000 pounds. I mean, that's very seductive, especially, I don't know how many of you have been down and out, but been there, and it's rough. It is a rough place to be. And I've never had anybody be like, yo, Tug, you got any of them sexy pictures? But I can say, that would be, Lord, when you're starving and you're wondering where your next meal is going to come from, how you're going to pay for the rent and everything else. Yeah, I imagine that would be quite seductive. So basically, he said you were an open-minded guy. You're open-minded there, who is always looking to make more moonies, which sounds perfect for me. I do a whole range of modeling and that sort of work, which I'd like to see if you might be up for. You can see, communications here. This is what they're posting. So you can see, well, I never say never, but I'm really quite curious who passed on my details. More info, please. Looking forward to your response. So again, the conversation here, and what's going to be fascinating, we've heard that Martin Branning, this name has been under investigation for quite some time. That's what the Byline Times has alleged. The police have been looking into it, and there have been investigative journalists, including people at The Guardian, because this person was saying that they were a talent manager. They had advertised in that way, and they had a lot of money to burn, but nobody knew who they were. Which I find very curious, because every time the name would come up, this was the allegation. People like Alex Truby said that anytime that was spoken about at all, it would get shut down. It would get shut down almost immediately. Dan Wooten would essentially browbeat people into pulling down anything they discussed. And, Dan Wooten would be a scary individual to face off with, too. I mean, people who can basically, they can financially destroy you. They are scary people. This is the problem with the false accusers, too. Financial intimidation exists, very much so. And the listen and believe crowd, the people who launch false allegations, they'll come back and say, oh my God, these folks, they're basically using the judicial system for intimidation. And the problem is there is an issue with that. You should be able to clear your name, though. See, I mean, it's just catch-22. Everything that's brought up, it's warped. It's warped by people like Dan Wooten. I mean, what he said about a Deb, or he said about other people when they go to defend themselves, it's a warped mirror on reality. Are the issues that they bring up, are they real issues? They are real social issues, but again, you're seeing it through a funhouse mirror. But anyway, so you see the mail there. The work turned out to be the creation of adult films made consensually between the man and a stream of individuals whose physical quote-unquote type Branning would dictate, with the man then locating corresponding candidates on Gaydar and Grindr. Once located, it notes, Branning sent handheld digital cameras to the man by motorbike carrier. Which were then collected in the same way once the films were made and followed, oftentimes some weeks later, by delivery of cash. Wootton was the then TV editor of the now defunct News of the World. You have to wonder, by the way, if these allegations end up being true, where exactly did that technology come from? Are we talking about, you got to think 2008. All right, that's when this initial stuff pops off. Now there is with this, there is something that does matter in this to begin with. When you look at that, you look at this behavior, consensual behavior. The word consensual does matter, but the actions in the aftermath are what they're talking about. The actions of, being blackmailed and more. At the time, I needed money. It was an attractive offer. The courier would come with a video camera he would supply. I would make footage of it, send it back with a courier arranged by Branning. There'd never be money until weeks later. I would be thinking he had stitched me up. Wow, oh my God, man. By the way, never do anything. I'm not even talking. First of all, never do anything like this, assuming that it won't be used in some way against you. There have been a lot of media figures, particularly female media figures, that have done this kind of stuff, and they've had that used against them later on. So never think that it won't be thrown out there. It won't be used to cost you jobs, or it. I hate to say best, a quote unquote best. It will be used as a reminder that you never get past. That will always come back up. So, I mean, again, desperation. It's amazing what becomes okay at times and how people like prey on desperation. But ultimately, money would be delivered by courier. Sweaty wads of 20s, basically. Why are they sweaty? What are they like, watching the video then and then giving it back? That's creepy. That's a very creepy descriptor there. Yeah, they would ultimately deliver mail via courier, which would be interesting too. I imagine this would be a way where you would try to eliminate any proof or chain of evidence, but you could prove that couriers were going. There would be enough evidence. I'm sure that Dan Wooten would, if we're talking about theoretically, say this is all true here. Dan Wooten he strikes me as a person, the power in this, the power would be seductive as it comes into control and everything else, but covering his digital tracks or covering, his physical tracks, he just doesn't strike me as somebody that would be that good at it unless he had, somebody else helping him there. I don't see him being smart enough to cover up his tracks for a decade. Before setting the target to work, Branning gave him a list of highly personal questions, making invasive inquiries about his sexuality and finances, along with a menu of photographic requirements. I know it sounds full on, but as I say, it's completely standard, wrote Branning on the 7th of July, 2008, before making directions for a series of graphic poses along with the questions. Have you ever slept with a celebrity? To which the victim said no. Now that's fascinating too. I mean, this sounds like solicitation is what it sounds like. And again, this is how people oftentimes skirt the law. If something is illegal, going out and buying these types of services, they'll skirt it by saying, well, we were making a video. That's why. But having the throw in of, have you ever slept with a celebrity? If the allegations again, they ring out. And remember, by Dan Wooten's old rules, the allegations are indeed reality. Yeah, that would sound very, like somebody posing a self-interest question. Now, there are consequences. So in his journalistic career, Dan Wooten has revealed a number of men as gay or bisexual, including Duncan James from the band Blue and a star of the BBC reality show The Apprentice. I don't know, by the way, anything about this. I do know that the tabloids, plenty of them have been accused over the years of outing people to destroy their lives. Not just to celebrate lifestyle or to say, there's an announcement of this, this person. Again, I hope to get to a world where this just becomes matter of fact. It doesn't really matter. Like all of you in the chat, I don't care like what you engage in. Love, you want to strap on a furry suit. You want to strap on a suit dressed like a squirrel and have somebody else dressed like a little, furry car and have them run you over again and again, that's your business. Now, if a video comes up, I would probably laugh about it and be like, oh my God, what in the world is that? But it's still your business. You do you, man. Whatever makes you happy. I hope to get to the world where, for real though, I mean, just your romantic preferences, especially, whatever you choose or don't choose, that just becomes a norm. Maybe we can focus on the person. That's something that really does annoy me in this day and age too. We spend so much time focusing on the things that shouldn't matter, the descriptors that you attach to somebody. That's supposed to give you merit, when in actuality, that's just another descriptor. Hopefully one day it won't matter. But anyway, so in November 2014, the Sun's Bizarre column, which Wootton edited at the time, even launched a so-called bi-bus, testing his theory that most of us are at least a little bit bisexual, particularly in the world of celebrity. Now, in a further email of July 2009, July 29, 2008. I got that. It throws me off, here it's July date. So this throws me off sometimes, especially if I'm working all day. Branning gave the man instructions on how to persuade targets to agree to be filmed. So bringing in other people for recruitment, it sounds like. Branning wrote, you make a really horny idea with whoever you're seeing. All you need to say is, I'd love you to film me as you me. It works with all guys. Trust me. Anyway, just keep me informed with your progress. Now, this, by the way, this is the kind of thing. If we're talking about canceling people in this day and age, hate the guy or don't hate the guy. This is not a comment on whether you like them or not. Andrew Tate, this is the kind of stuff that Andrew Tate would come out and say and got a massive amount of blowback. Make them love you. The lover boy method. That's the thing that getting brought up again and again. You make them love you. They become addicted to you. Then you shove the camera in their face and you basically turn them into a cam girl, and then you manipulate their targets. That's been the allegations there. Words out of his own mouth, by the way, have gone to that effect. So it's fascinating if this turns out to be So the same people that have, if you apply that standard across, I mean, if you're looking at a Tate and saying a Tate, oh my God, that guy's a monster. Well, that's the same thing. It's essentially pimping, is what it is. I mean, it's a digital form of pimping, but it is. It's somebody becoming a pimp. Nancy, thanks for the 2. Please add the furry squirrel and go over to the intro. Oh my God. I got a bad image of that too, by the way. I got a bad image of the Baby Don't Hurt Me, that song with that stupid furry squirrel getting rid of my car. What's bad is that actually there was a video at one time. So there was a furry convention. And all these just crazy videos came out of there. They made them into memes. And there was a setup that was that. I kid you not. There was a video that came out with a person dressed like a squirrel and somebody dressed like a furry car running them over. I mean, like, no joke. Yeah. I was like, what in God's name am I looking at here? So when I say that, I just didn't come up with that on the fly. That's real. If you can think of it, it has probably happened. And you probably shouldn't search the internet to find it. Also, don't accidentally type in the wrong things. Like when you're looking up that umbrella guy, never look up the word tug. Because if you look up the word tug on, say, Twitter, you're going to get a lot more than you want. But anyway, given his account of events to Byline Times, the man said, I wish I'd never responded to that first email, but I did. Nowadays, people do OnlyFans, which you know what OnlyFans, if you don't know what OnlyFans is, OnlyFans, by the way, again, you can make your own choices, but it's a sad reality. I have a lot of hatred for OnlyFans because of how exploitive that site is. They make money, but most people that use that site, they do not make money. In fact, a big earner there, they don't. I don't know if you know who Boogie, is on. He did the Boogie 2.9. Well, I can't remember the numbers there, but he always did those Francis videos. He's a heavier guy, and he opened up an OnlyFans as a joke. Well, he actually scored in a top 20 percentile range, and he was bringing in around $600 for the month. That was considered landing in the upper echelon because the normal person on OnlyFans, the average there is $166. All the stuff that you see that people, post out there. And again, a lot of people, they get into places in life where they may not have choices about that. With Australia, for example, OnlyFans as a secondary job. You had your regular jobs, but then OnlyFans for women became one of the top 5 secondary incomes because of inflation. People were having to take on second jobs, and people were buying into the idea that they could make easy cash, when in reality, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. One second. I always hate that. I always hate the idea of, it's so easy to make this money, but they say, nowadays people do that. And I was thinking it was the same kind of thing back in those days. It all seemed quite innocent. And I thought, I'm not hurting anyone. Then it escalated. It got heavier once I did give some content over. The guy I was meeting, I'm sorry, the guys, I don't know why I did that. The guys that I was meeting were up for being filmed on camera. It was consenting. So Branning's pretext for applying pressure to the victim was to say that he was working on behalf of a demanding third party who seemingly had intimate knowledge of the victim's partners and their movements as a couple. Now, this is where you get into your problems. Again, this is the idea where that word consent, it doesn't really apply. If we go back, again, I'm going to continue forward, but I marked that. If we go back, here's where your problems occur. The threats. Well, if you don't do this, then that compromising material that you put together, yeah, that's going to be sent to your family, your employers, or your Facebook friends. So again, that's not consent anymore. When you're like, hey, you can withdraw consent on something, people are like, no, that's where it becomes a real problem. In fact, the victim had been introduced to Wootton by the victim's partner in the early stages of the relationship, and the partner also worked for News UK. Now so the partner of this person, again, was working at News UK. And this was what Alex Truby was talking about. When he basically found a conversation about putting together a video, which he alleges was done without consent. You could see two parties discussing it, but the way it was filmed and stuff, third party had no knowledge of that therein. Yeah, that's where it almost sounds like, if you look at this from a more conspiratorial mindset, if you think about it as a long game, if you're talking about going in and propositioning partners of someone, they're romantic or hookup partners, and they end up being colleagues. I mean, they may get material on colleagues, or they have something that they could blackmail colleagues with as well. So, I mean, if you look at that as a long game, as somebody, again, all allegations, making that very clear, not substantiated here. That's crazy when you think about that, what they're alleging in there. And again, Dan Wooten was okay saying stuff like this would be 100% true. If this were a story about another, I want you to imagine that Dan Wooten did not get accused at all. Okay, he's not been accused. It was somebody else. If I was just reading this about some random person out there, how do you think Dan Wooten would cover it? I mean, if there was another journalist and or a Hollywood celebrity, and there were accusations about them engaging behind the scenes with a fake name, bringing people in, catfishing them, and exploiting other employees, and how do you think Dan Wooten would have gone about that? See, when you're looking at this, Dan Wooten may change his song now going forward. He may delete a lot of what he did in the past. Hell, he can even be like, oh man, I apologize and I've grown. But he spent over half a fucking decade destroying one person by themselves. And he didn't care then. The song just changed when his name came up. See, that's the troubling thing. He didn't just suddenly start believing in due process because he had an epiphany. He had it because this hurricane that he and other people unleashed, it ended up eating his home. That's the problem with being an internet arsonist or a journalist, a journalistic arsonist. When you set a town ablaze, as it were, don't be surprised when those flames end up at your house. When you start shouting down, oh man, arsonists are bad. Well, it's kind of weird to hear somebody who set the fires actually complaining about that. That's pretty much what we're seeing here. It's a arsonist pretending to be a firefighter, complaining about, oh man, look at those blazes. My house has been set ablaze. So the victim said, I always felt that Dan Wooten had a strange obsession with my ex, 100%, and it was weird. I was always saying to my ex-partner, that guy is massively in love with you and is obsessed with you. And when I came into the relationship, you could tell that there was this jealous aspect from Wooten. It was so obvious. Now, this is going to be fascinating to see because Wooten very much is going through he's going to go after these folks legally. That's what he's saying. He's going to go after Byline Times. He's going to go after every accuser. Because this is the end of what you're looking at right here. Well, it may not process because the whole picture hasn't come out altogether, but really what you're talking about here is the potential end to a career. If this stuff ends up being, again, not consensual activities, but all of this other stuff, coercion through manipulation, threatening people, with this type of material. If this stuff ends up being real, I mean, he's not just out here, quote unquote, fighting leftist propaganda, as he says, or I'm the anti-woke. He's fighting for his career because I think he understands now that this is real and it is destructive. But continuing, Branning's knowledge of details about the victim's private life were soon unnerved him. My bad. I'll get it right in a second. Branning's knowledge of details about the victim's private life soon unnerved him. It was odd. Saying I was going on holiday with my partner, then messages would get more intense and requests would get more and more common. It just ramped up. And I was like, well, God, this guy knows too much about me. That was the scary thing. And it was just frightening, really. I couldn't get away. Anywhere I was, I felt that I was under scrutiny in some way, shape, or form. And you lose trust with a lot of people that you know because you start thinking, well, it's got to be somebody feeding information to who I thought was a genuine person. I had no idea. So, again, you would start to mistrust. I mean, if you think about that, if a person that you've been in anonymous communications with that is using couriers to send things, they're saying, well, I know this source is connected, but they seem to know all of this stuff about you. That would become very unnerving over time. It would get to the point where you would indeed distrust everyone because you would wonder who's out to get you. Things started to come to a head when Branning told the victim to make a film with his partner, who, when asked, said he did not want to make one consensually. The victim said it started with, "Do you know this guy? I told him I was not going to do this, but the pressure was mounting." So here's where the accusations turn into, it's no longer consensual. Although I would make the argument that when you get into the high pressure coercion, is that really giving consent? There's people treat this stuff like it's just a yes or a no. But I mean, with factors like if you think about like here's an absurd scene, but to give you an idea of what I'm saying, to talk about the gray area. You know about the allegations with say a Vanilla Ice and record deals. He says, yeah, I signed over all the rights to a Shook Knight when people hung me off a balcony and threatened to Minecraft me. But he gave consent, right? So I mean, again, it's not just an easy yes or no question all the time. But he went on. I said it was not going to happen. He's not interested. It would be difficult to obtain what you want. But then I was told, just take some discreet pictures if you can. So right here is a real problem because, again, the allegation is this is a coworker of Dan Wooten, a coworker that this person is saying he was allegedly infatuated with. He was obsessed with, when he looked at him in real life. And you have messages here with a party saying, no, this is a party not even involved in the communication. This is a party that, again, if you look at the allegations, like I was saying, this looks like that person may have well been the target for it. Like it's a long game. And there are some devious people out there to say that that's not a way some folks would work. I mean, heck, this would give you power and control over somebody in ways that nothing else could. So when he refused, Branning, he says, became ruthless. The man said, Branning said, if you don't get this footage, then there will be consequences. And you don't want your employer to find out or your friends and family to know what you've been doing. Now, this right here, this has become a common tactic of people that catfish You know, you see this utilized quite a bit. In fact, there have been some major lawsuits. In fact, Twitter was sued because a person that was underage, they actually thought they were exchanging photographs and videos with a female when in reality they weren't. This person, you know, after the person refused to give the catfisher what they wanted, they told them, if you don't, I'm going to expose you to everyone. I'm going to show everyone in your town. I'm going to post this stuff on social media and whatnot. The person ended up, they turned over stuff for a little while from this blackmail, but after a while they refused, and that stuff was posted. Now, this is under old Twitter, to make this very clear. This is before the new Twitter, before Elon Musk, but there were videos that were posted and they were never taken down. So, I mean, that kind of stuff very well does happen. And I'm not saying that right there is true, but the type of scenario you're talking about, oh, it happens. It happens a lot. And, you know, banning somebody, that doesn't help. They just come back with 30 or 40 more accounts and they continue to do it. But it's also a statement on the person themselves, too, that would engage in that type of behavior. Leslie, thanks for the 10 months. Tug, all my friends. You are my lifeline. Love you all. Had to say, hey, appreciate you. Appreciate you. Appreciate all of you. Like I said, very much so. So he continued. No one wants their mom and dad to see you someone. And that's what it was. Well, if you don't, your family and your friends and your colleagues and your employer are going to see what you've been doing. You know, that was the heaviest part of it. I did try to ignore that and tell him to F off, but then it just got more intense. You know, and that's the thing. I mean, okay, we heard about Rebecca, God, I always forget her name. Jones, is that correct? Am I saying her last name right? You know, again, the media darling. The one that got into the fight with Florida about beer bug stuff. Well, we found out that there was another layer with her where she put together I'm going to call it a document. I was thinking about a way. It was really a website. It had hundreds of pages. It contained explicit material, and the way that she did the most damage with it, she showed that to the family and friends of this person. She got her due process day. She was told by the court, you know, you have to go through X, Y, and Z. And she pled no contest, by the way. And, you know, she went after the person right after that again. But yeah, family, friends, colleagues, and your employer. How is your employer? Depending on what your employer is, oftentimes the employer may say, well, I don't really care what you do in your free time. Some employers do. You know, in a day and age, even back when, you know, it's all in a day and age where people are fired just for words. Some of the stuff that comes up that is not considered appropriate by an employer, that activity, it may cost them everything. And again, this type of stuff, I mean, it's easy to read a sentence or a few sentences and to say, yeah, you know, look at that. That's horrible. But they're saying, hey, I lived this. I lived this for years, which is crazy. So you really don't know the damage caused. After Branning threatened the partner, offered them money, and crucially, the promise to make the final demand of them, he reluctantly agreed to secretly make the video, which Alex Truby would later find confronting Wootton, who Mr. Truby said made a tearful confession to being Branning. So there's your tie-in to everything. So this person, again, Alex Truby, one of the person that Dan Wooten went after and said, yeah, this person was a monster. They were accosting me. That's part of their fundraising statement too. They're saying, you know, that partner, they did all of this terrible stuff to me. Well, the thing that they left out of that statement was the stuff about Branning. And the Branning statement, again, they were saying, I was watching his house. I was sitting behind the washing machine. I found a carry-all with a padlock on it. They ended up getting into it, and it had, they said, a video. It had a discussion. And it's interesting, like I said, when that first came up, I'd be very interested in how that discussion came up. Why would you keep evidence of said discussion? And the reason that you would keep evidence of a discussion, if it played out like this, would be because of power and control. You know, somebody, they may keep blackmail material on somebody, but even more than that, I mean, this would have layers to it. Yes, you get the power over people. You get power over them with blackmail material. But even more than that, you just get power over people. And some folks, I mean, they get off on that. So the bed said, it was a barrage of pressure to get this, or otherwise your cover will be blown. In the end, I was like, F it, I will do it. Asked if he was blackmailed into it. The then ex-partner said yes. And again, I really, really want to see if there are pictures of the initial propositions here, the consensual propositions. I'd really like to see some of that conversation where things they turn to the nasty. And Byline Times has alleged that they've turned over, I think, a 28-page dossier, that all of the allegations are spelled out therein. I'd be curious exactly what they added to that as far as contextual proof. So he added, the guilt and shame of actually doing what I've done to somebody that I was in a relationship with, that's the thing that makes, to this day, makes me feel sick, because there's consequences to that. I still can't forgive myself for doing that to somebody else. And yeah, I mean, that'd be a horrific situation to step into. We hear stuff like that all the time. The strain it put on the relationship began to take a toll, and it foundered and failed after Branning made good on his threat to expose the victim's work for him by sending an edit of the worst bits to his partner. Now, I'm curious about, when he's saying this, saying, well, the worst bits, is it also including what they filmed of the partner too? He said it was well edited. It was just a montage of me and the things I'd sent out. I saw it was true that this guy knows how to get a hold of people that are very, very close to me. And again, yeah, I mean, this was somebody that, again, with allegations go, they didn't know it was Dan Wooten. So it was somebody that had all of these connections, and they would very well know how to reach them. And this would be one of his coworkers there. And the email, there's an email there. And the email sent to Branning on May 30th, 2011. Again, I haven't read this, so we run across an email. I'm like, wow, there's an email. The victim said, a video of me was sent to my partner with footage of the very person I'd been with and sent to you. You promised me that it wouldn't happen. You really don't know the damage caused. To which Branning replied, must have been the other guy, because he was getting really annoyed you couldn't get any footage with the partner who I think he knows. So here's the message exchange that's been added to this. But like I said, I would really love to hear Dan Wooten tell us, emphatically tell us, this is not me. Because if he does that, as you roll forward into the courtroom, Does this, this is where you get into, is this just making mistakes? Is this an out and out lie? That's where things get a little crazy, right? But here's the letter. So it says, F, really? Wait. A video of me sent to my partner with footage of every person I'd been with and sent to you. You promised me that wouldn't happen. You really don't know the damage caused. And the answer was, F, really? Must have been the other guy, because he was really annoyed you couldn't get any footage with redacted who he thinks he knows. What happened? Sorry. Now that, yeah, I wouldn't buy into a message like that, by the way. That's crazy, though. Yeah, like somebody just said, Super 23, everyone else is a liar but me, you know? Here's a question. Why are the allegations Dan Wooten is facing much worse than JD accused of, and people are supporting him, but not JD? That's because when JD popped off, like all of that stuff popped off, it was in the middle. It's all in the framework, first of all. You know, people are stupid. Let's just be honest. The majority of people, they don't get past headlines. Headlines, they dictate how people think and react to something. And Dan Wooten, when he engaged in that attack, he engaged by calling Depp, he called him a wife beater. When you do that, that's Me Too. It was supposed to be about all victims coming forward, being able to receive support. You know, you had people like Terry Crews that came out, they spoke up. But after a while, it became just about allegations, and it became about allegations from women toward men. That was pretty much the destructive force. Added to that, you have to remember how Hollywood was at the time too. It became hashtag time's up. You know, this got so big that millions and millions of dollars were raised. And again, I'm not going to go on the rant about how all that was fake and messed up, but it just shows you how Hollywood was set up at the time. The thing was, in Depp's response, Depp, he didn't respond in a war of words online. What he ended up doing was he went through the courtroom way. He, if you look at his responses to stuff, he wasn't, you had some of his lawyers responding to allegations. You had people like Waldman that came out and dropped the sledgehammer on that stuff, you know, was breaking it to bits, but they did it in a way that wasn't denial. It was through a foundation of evidence. And unfortunately, in creating a foundation of evidence, you have a pause in coming in. You may deny something, but you yourself aren't coming out. And you just have to imagine the world there. But you also have to imagine all of these meat puppets, these talking heads that get out there. They were attacking him politically based, just like Dan Wooten is using politics to push away and to protect and insulate himself. You had Depp. He was being attacked on multiple fronts. You know, it was through the Me Too. It was through different lawyers that were coming up. They were attacking all of these talking heads. Like I said, these talking meat sacks that would get up. They just regurgitate the same crap over and over again. But he had no protection in the media. He didn't have powerful allies like a Dan Wooten does. And Dan Wooten, again, believe it or not, the difference is the allegations would undo a normal person. But Dan Wooten, his living is made by being a talking head for organizations that, if they decide to target you, they will destroy you. And if they decide to protect you, they control the narrative. The only reason this is even getting coverage is because of pretty much, in my opinion, the only reason this got talked about at all. Again, I am not by any stretch of the imagination a fan of a lot of what Elon Musk does and support. A lot of people get banned for nothing these days. But I will say that Twitter, one of the things that is happening now is behind the scenes communications. It's hard to shut down something like this now. The noise gets big and it gets loud. And you have, I'm going to call them independent outlets that say, I'm not going to be intimidated, financially by any of this. I'm going to end up spreading this message. And again, one allegation alone gets 17 million embedded views, potential views. So that tells you it still gets around. But anyway, that's a discussion. I don't mean to derail. I think that is a good question. What followed, though, was a campaign apparently designed to chase the ex out of town and ensure his future silence. He said, and then it was harassment. It was horrendous. I left London to get away from it. I changed my phone number, blocked all of these Martin Branning email addresses that would come in, but he still managed to get hold of me up to 2018 when it stopped. And that again is in the time period where the articles about Depp were being written. Manic Malice thinks of Danny Boy. Oh no, somebody ran over your squirrel in my car and got it on video. Must have been that other guy. Sorry. Yeah, pretty much. That's what that denial that says. Oh, nope. The branding address. Oh, well, it must have been that other person that was in communications. You're only talking to me, but yeah, it must have been the other person. There's this mystery person in there. That's crazy. Naomi, thanks for the 10. Thanks. Say thank you for the sticker there. And John S., not Twitter anymore. Apparently he rebranded to X. Yeah, we'll actually talk about that in a minute because there's some funny stuff that came up with that too. But 2018, like I said, that really matters because of what was going on and how allegations were being levied. So much stuff. And an explosion, as it were, that saw Dan Wooten, when Dan Wooten engaged all of this, this is when cease and desists would have been launched. See, we don't have a picture. We know when litigation occurs, but what we don't know is the actions before litigation. There's always a process we actually are not privy to. And that whole thing, if you have cease and desist being sent, you have scrutiny, all of that, eyes on. Yeah, you could see why, potentially, again, if these allegations are true, why that would end up stopping. Because if you're going out, you're doing all of this stuff while you're engaged. And again, there's the allegations of non-disclosure agreements and everything else too that were happening at the time. So no denial of link to Branning. The victim only became aware of the connection between Branning and Dan Wooten after Byline Times unmasked him as a serial catfish who has used various online identities to trick and bribe scores of men into revealing compromising material. Now, remember, like I said, it's not just Branning too. That's one of the things. Well, the discussions in the articles said that there was catfishing of heterosexual men. I would be curious, again, with the accusers. This is what I would really like to know. I'd like to know if the accusers are all linked in somehow. Are we talking about random, like throwing out a proverbial net, as it were, or the accusers, which we haven't, again, we don't know who many of them are. Are these folks linked in some way? Like this one is saying, I had a link to an employee that was at, because nobody's offering you 5,000 pounds a week. We're talking 20,000 pounds a month. Continuing all of that. if there's not more, I mean, just it seems very not just catfishy, but fishy. So the newspaper revealed how the 40-year-old broadcaster and self-stylist voice against quote-unquote woke culture, whose show Dan Wooten tonight is the biggest ratings winner on the UK's fourth most watched news channel, targeted journalistic colleagues, friends, and members of the public for at least 10 years, offering sums of up to £30,000, quote-unquote, tax-free to his targets, many of whom were heterosexual men. While the newspaper has repeatedly asked representatives for Wootton to confirm or deny whether the presenter was or is connected to Branning, it has not received a response. There is no response. It's not just this place, by the way, that made those allegations. There were quite a few allegations. What Byline News did is they combined these allegations. They put it all together, and they said, yeah, when you look at all of that, when you look at what, again, Truby was the person that actually ended up pointing the finger toward Dan Wooten is that name. And like I said, I'm very curious how this isn't an investigation that you can just cover up now. This isn't something, if indeed this is being looked at, if police do indeed find a connection here, that's not something, like I said, you won't be able to hide that. It will end up becoming part of public record. Heather, thanks for 5. I showed my mom a pic of Dan. I asked for her gut feeling. She said he looks like an a-hole. I told her she nailed it. LOL. He looks. He looks exactly like I would expect a person who wrote those articles to look like. He looks exactly like I would anticipate that. And in the world of broadcast journalism these days, talking heads and whatnot, that becomes pretty typical. You have a certain look, a certain style. I've been watching that show Suits. I don't know if people have seen that. It became. It's not only a good show, but it became. I guess it got more scrutiny after the Meghan Markle connection because she's part of that. But in there, actions that I see or looks that I see from some of the people that do terrible stuff, they remind me of a lot of broadcast journalists, not necessarily lawyers, but they remind me of, that image, that personification that they try to pass. And politics is powerful. It is a powerful aphrodisiac to the masses because people just break it down into their side versus my side, and anything goes. Again, it's made a lot of money with that. Now, while the paper, they've repeatedly asked representatives, they've not received a response. Wooten has said he denies any allegations of criminality. And again, I believe in due process there. My statement on this kind of stuff, I think there are two forces that come together with all of this. The two forces are the statement that people really do deserve due process. They do. Allegation culture is indeed poison. But that hasn't mattered. The other force there is the people that have benefited, that have created this culture of cancellation. The ones that have gone and drawn from that well again and again, them suddenly finding fault when they're accused, that doesn't fly with me. Again, they want to manipulate you because your values say that these things, they shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be able to wreck people's lives. But they've done that. They've done that again and again. And then when they get accused, they're like, well, what about your standard on this? And it's like, no, what about your standard on it? What about your show? Aiming that back at the people like Dan Wooten, their commentary. Bessie, thanks for those 20 months. For F's sake, he's done crooked. Yeah, cheat. Yes, exactly. Charge worthy. We'll find out if they don't bury the evidence for him. He did it to JD. Smear campaign, more like karma. Yeah, indeed. Now I'm going to read you that thing again that he said, about the culture of cancellation to remind you. So the man said he never clapped eyes on Dan Wooten again since their first meeting until I saw him once at another members club and he was like, "Hi, how are you?" And I just told him to F off, basically. I had no idea. I just didn't like him as a person. I had no idea he was the person who was posing as Branning. So he's saying, I ran into him again. I didn't even know who he was, but I just didn't like him, period. So when I ran into him, and you'd think, you're running into somebody like that and you're telling him that in real life, not realizing how much power that they have over you behind the scenes. Yeah, that could be a problem. So last week, in response to Byline Times investigations of a GB News show, the presenter railed against supposedly dark forces seeking to cancel him with a smear campaign. Of Alex Truby, he said, he has created an untrue story about me and appears to be working with an organization who are intent on closing down this channel. Now, you have to wonder, by the way, who is this organization? Are they talking about Byline Times? Is that the quote unquote organization? Or are they talking about, some larger unnamed conspiracy? Then he added, I, like all fallible beings, have made errors in judgment in the past, but the criminal allegations being made against me are simply untrue. Declining to take the opportunity to deny being or being connected to Branning, he continued, who doesn't have regrets? Should I be canceled for them many years later, or do you accept that I've learned and changed? Again, I took this statement, the way that I see this, and again, only Dan Wooten can clarify, but I see this as just worming your way out of being part of that culture of cancellation. Sure, I've gone out. Yeah, sure, I've helped. I've helped bury other people with headlines, but I'm just a fallible human being. I've made errors in judgment. But who doesn't have regrets in the past? When I look at this stuff, should I be canceled for them many years later? And here's the problem. It isn't many years later. We're talking about a guy that, he was railing about, say, a Depp. He was railing about him during the height of the trial. He took a very heavy stance while everyone else pretty much was saying, this is messed up. We can see the truth in the matter. Dan Wooten was taking the stance of, yeah, not so much. And I remember he also made the statements about Philip Schofield. He said the following, quote, when the current rumors and accusations swirling around about Philip Schofield, why is he still on our screens? Why have ITV not suspended him pending an internal inquiry? I would have thought in this day and age that a mainstream broadcaster such as ITV ought to be seen to be doing all it can to deal with issues like this, find out where the truth lies, and in the meantime, suspend those who the rumors concern. So, he's calling for the suspension of other broadcasters if they're accused. He's saying point blank, these people, they should suffer the consequences of allegations alone. They should be taken off the screen. Again, dark forces, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's making the allegations. All of that should be treated as guilt. He's preaching a guilty until proven innocent. He's saying, pending investigations, people, they should have their lives interrupted. They should take down, they should be, their livelihoods. They should be denied that. Allegation alone, that should prove you're guilty until. And he's not talking about going out and making a statement on media, going and making a statement on a show and saying, hey, I deny all of that. He's talking about actual investigations, proving, again, it's a guilty until proven innocent standard, which is beyond messed up. And I get, like I said, I get there are monsters out there. Seeing some monster on TV doing something while you're saying, "Oh, look what this person did to me." I mean, that's a horrible situation. But eventually, some of these people, they do pay. I mean, again, look at like Danny Masterson. Danny Masterson, for years, you had the discussion about whether the guy was guilty or not. You had 2 trials into him, and eventually he did end up getting convicted. So, I mean, there are people out there, but for every Danny Masterson, look at how many people have their lives derailed just over. It's so easy to make accusations about people in this day and age. It is so easy. But a spokesman for news, excuse me, my voice, for News UK, which, following the Byline Times story, launched last week, launched an investigation appointing external counsel to oversee it in moves not seen since the phone hacking scandal of 2011, said, "We are looking into the allegations made in recent days. We are not able to make any further comment at this stage." So they're saying we are investigating, which, yeah, they definitely should. They should do that. They should do that, period, to find out what's been going on under their watch. If you're talking about, again, employers having somebody in their rank and file going after other folks, yeah, they should definitely investigate that. But the allegations are that you couldn't trust these places. Why? Because their own HR teams, the former employer, the son, Dan Wooten allegedly was very chummy with the people that were investigating him at the Sun, and he got around internal. And with an external investigation, that's supposed to the reason people bring in external teams is that's supposed to give you it's supposed to eliminate these hints of impropriety. Oh, you're just keeping it in house, when in reality, many of these external entities, when they farm them out, they're either connected to places that defend them legally. They will do damage control. They're not going to hire some place that is just going to be a 100% non-biased entity. You don't see that anyway. I want to be careful in the way I say that. Perhaps they, out of all of these other places that protect themselves when they circle the wagon, perhaps they are the one that is actually engaged in 100% above board. But yeah, that would be like finding a unicorn these days. I would hope that you would get a fair shake. I would very much hope that due process would reel out, but trusting them, yeah, really, come on. So the allegations in this article have been put to representatives of Dan Wooten, and this newspaper has not received a response, but Byline Times will update this article if it does. I'm curious too, if they do updates on this, like what exactly will we find? What exactly will we see? Like, let me see if there's anything else on Byline Times here. Let me see if they've put up anything new, because I am curious about that. I am curious, like, if they're going to go in and they're going to, Byline Times, if they're making updates, are they going to tell people? Now, this stuff too is getting a lot to tell you about how much, embedded view wise that this stuff gets here. You see how much traffic this potentially has. This is the thing that that tells you this is why they could not avoid the story, why the story had to have a response, because that alone, the third part of this has already got a million embedded potential hits there. And, all this other stuff, again, when people are talking about it, 52,000. I mean, just discussions, just commentary on the stuff by itself, 900,000. Like I said, it's crazy to see. I'm curious when people see this too. What do you think about all of this insanity? I personally think that I think it's kind of fair game, to be honest. Again, it does seem like the will of I'm careful in calling it karma. It is karma to a point, but I mean, really, this is it's going to happen. Because accusation culture, you may be able to aim it in a direction, but the thing is, like I said, it's like unleashing a hurricane. It doesn't cooperate, and sooner or later, true things, you're going to have monsters out there, but the untrue stuff, you're still going to have that come home. I mean, people are going to use the same tactics that you utilize to destroy as well. Now, a fascinating thing that has come up. Now, we're gross. I'm glad I pulled that off my screen. So, one of the things that's happening, another thing I wanted to talk about, if you look at, it's what's been happening with Twitter since we brought up Twitter. I'm sure most of you by now have heard about the rebranding, right? Where Twitter has now become X.com. It's real, by the way. Now, apparently, Muskie Elon has actually done this before. He, in fact, tried to rebrand Twitter back in the day. This is actually pretty funny when you look at this. He tried to rebrand as X with PayPal. Like here, you can see him. There's actually a picture of the other PayPal founder. They wanted to become X.com. But that didn't work out. Well, at the time, when you're doing that, that's such a strange, absurd move, because the joke to this, when they've been talking about it, this is crazy. This is funny though. If you look at trending topics right now on Twitter, X videos. That's what people, if you put up a video, it's not a Twitter video now, it's an X video. Okay, well, X video is an adult platform. It has a lot of, if you search it, it's one of the biggest adult platforms out there. Well, interestingly, people have been bringing that connection up. And if you look, X video, that platform has now been banned on Twitter. So the rebranding has had some very fascinating unintended consequences. Naming it after, again, it sounds like an adult parody, coming up. But on top of that, you've had bannings to secure it because can't be talking about X video and what it really is. It's such a train wreck. Heather, things to do. People who live in glass houses. Indeed, that is very true. Enrique Elno, Rochelle, thanks for the 10 there. Sup, Tug and Tuggernauts, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Mate, what's your location? You want to mail that? I'm good, hella busy. I'm glad to know that you're doing good, by the way. I have a P.O. box. All right, I'm going to put it in the chat. P.O. box. You can sell this to that umbrella guy. This is funny, by the way. So I went to the post office the other day, and I didn't have my key. I'd forgotten, I'd forgotten to bring my key with me, and when I went up there, whoops, I forgot the mail, the zip code. Let me put that up again. P.O. Box 257, McMinnville, Tennessee, 37111. So I went over to the I went over to the PO box and I was asking them, like, "Hey, can I check that?" That I pulled out my ID. I was going to show them, and they were like, "Yeah, that umbrella guy." And I was like, "That's hilarious." So at the post office, they actually if something comes in and it goes for that umbrella guy, they know that that's me. I thought that was kind of funny. It is a name though that sticks out because it's a large name. It's all collected together, but people, they send stuff over. And I don't know. I found that to be kind of funny when the postal workers are like, "Yeah, that umbrella guy. I know who those packages are for." So they become so accustomed to it. Again, it's a small town anyway, but they become accustomed to it enough that I don't even really need ID for it. They just know, hey, that's you. I thought that was really funny. John S. Thanks for 5. Could have been worse. He could have switched to X branding and adopted a hamster as a logo. It'd be cool too if they got like Richard Gere as the celebrity being like, yeah, and they had a ham. Oh man, that'd be terrible. But no, I mean, there's been a lot of so on top of this, there have been a lot of bands and a lot of bands for like one of the people that I saw banned. I know that they don't even dip into really controversy. Yeah, I mean, they pretty much, put up bird pictures. They talk about, stuff that goes on with their lives, like, nothing controversial at all. Now for myself, I noticed this, so and I posted about this, as far as suspensions, I can always tell when suspensions start happening because of how many people that I follow. And you can check this on Social Blade. See if followers, you can't really tell if people are unfollowing you. They could unfollow you for anything. That number, that's just that could be anything. It could be anything from bot suspensions to anything more. But I don't follow everybody. I follow I try to keep it under 1,000 accounts because really I can't keep up with it. It doesn't have anything to do with like or dislike. It's just it becomes noise and timelines are already screwed up and it's hard to find anything these days anyway. So I don't follow that many people. Well, I was following over 870 people yesterday. Now, for myself, I don't engage in unfollowing other people unless you have like some kind of extreme stupidity. And there are a few people. I think I unfollowed one person yesterday. I'm not going to say who, but it just, it just somebody I was like, oh, I don't want to see anything from them. They're idiots. But on top of that, you may get what they call soft blocks. If a person doesn't want you following them, if they're like, oh, I don't like what you said or whatever, they can block and unblock you and it'll unfollow both. Now that may pop up. Let's just say one unfollow, a few people deleted their accounts and a couple of soft blocks. I still have over a dozen people, even taking in those outliers there. I have over a dozen people that have been banned since this rebranding. There is no reason for it. There's no reason for it whatsoever. I mean, when you look at that, none whatsoever, but it's there anyhow, right? It's crazy, huh? Do smell what Tug's cooking, indeed. Now, Rosemary, thank you for the 20. Hey, Tug, I listened to Lady C, who is a friend and supporter of Wootton on the opposite side, JDAH. She told him he was wrong. Says Dan was duped by AH like JD was, but can't speak due to the sun suit that JD lost in the UK. Well, the problem with that, I saw that too. And again, no offense to the person. I disagree with what they're saying because this stance wasn't just about JD. It was a stance with many other people. See, Dan has adopted this stance of listen and believe. Now, he can go on the record and say, yeah, now, or not go on the record, but behind the scenes, he can say, yeah, I was just duped by this person. Well, the problem with that is that he threw in not just with them to go after JD, they went after everyone. They went after people like myself, yourself. They called you monsters, cultists, and much, much more. They framed AH is a poor single mother that's out there just trying to live their life when in reality, again, behind the scenes, and Dan being a journalist, I mean, it is his responsibility. He had access to all of the documentation we saw from the Sun case. You could see that there was a coordinated effort by AH and the ACLU. They coordinated behind the scenes. They put together an attack piece. I mean, it was an insane attack piece. All of the details from lawyers and more had already leaked in. It was 100% about him too, and Dan continued to go forward with it. I mean, he continued. He didn't back off. You know, if he suddenly came to the realization that, hey, maybe I had been duped. Hey, maybe his actions in public, they didn't say that. He didn't express that at all. What his action in public said is that he was continuing these attacks again and again. You know, he stuck that in. He tried to take them down, and that, I mean, that says plenty. Now, if Dan, again, you know, if Dan wants to make some comments talking about, well, this is what if he wants to make some off the freaking record comments and convince people, that's his prerogative. I would love to hear what he has to say. I'd love to hear it. I get that he has been in litigation too, but I look at the actions there. Again, you know, I don't fault people for being duped necessarily, for buying into something blindly, but he went beyond that. You know, his articles, when you look at what he did, his article wasn't about, again, regurgitation of, let's see, it wasn't regurgitation of claims. It was calling for J.K. Rowling to take down JD. I mean, okay, here's the, you know, when you look through the article, I'm going to pull this thing up again because, you know, I hear what's being said there, but at the same time, when I look at the article, it doesn't reflect that. I'm going to have to pull this up on another browser. Give me a second. This thing is got so many freaking pop-ups in it. It's so horrible. We're going to have to do a live stream over the Aquaman stuff too. Because that is so nuts. The stuff that has been going on with Aquaman. Ooh, we're going to have to talk about that in a live stream. I've done a couple of videos on it, but it is so much more. What's up, Dreadnought? Thanks for 5. Something tells me renaming Twitter to X isn't a good idea. All Twitter videos are going to be X video references. The adult memes will be legendary. Again, that's the stupidity to it. I mean, it was dumb to do. Very dumb. What's up, Rochelle? Not Raquel. Thanks for the 2. Cheers, Tug. Hey, cheers back at you. Yeah, you hear the robot. It'll take me a second. It'll take it a second. I opened up, give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. It's a freaking disease site, the sun. All right. Let's close 2 things down. Give me 1 minute. Just a second. I'm closing out some crap. All right. Now it should get better. How's that? Is that better? I was fixing the sound on it. Hey, Heather, thanks for the 5. I want us to claim Dephead. I think it's a cool thing. The lunatic said, Depheads for life. I'd rather be a Dephead than a T-state. There for sure. Yeah, see, that's what I mean with the sun. That's what I was complaining about. With all the pop-ups that came up when I pulled it up, I had to pull it up under a browser to make sure that actually, let me blow this up a little bit. I'd open it up with a browser that wouldn't allow all those pop-ups to happen. All right, here we go. All right, so again, I'm not going to go through this whole article. All right, I just want to make a point with it. If you're talking about being being misled or duped. When you look at this article is not referenced about accusation. What this article is an attack on a career. And it's an attack on a career based on going after J.K. Rowling, who would control at the times the reins to whether or not JD would have current and future ability to have employment through not just Fantastic Beasts, but really through Warner Brothers at all. I mean, that's what that was about. Because when you go through this, again, this is a call out for J.K. Rowling. It uses Me Too. It calls her a Hollywood hypocrite. It says, why haven't you destroyed this guy's life? Why haven't you taken him down? Why haven't you ruined him? And also, it still hasn't been corrected either. You notice she donated all of the money that she got. She donated. She's going to commit too. Now, you notice that change there. She's committed to donating. But he had it. Oh, she's donating all those millions. Yeah, and they all picked that up. That was seen as a sign of guilt. Now, then she quoted other folks too, folks that were high profile, that had been involved, again, high profile in the Me Too movement. And many of them they said they had no idea that this stuff was being used. They were misquoted because they would not be involved in something where they thought that AH was the aggressor. They made it very clear, hey, that is messed up. So when it ended, and I think this should be the same type of a standard. And again, this didn't just end with this article. It continued. It went all through every time a JD would come up. Oh, I'm a victim of cancel culture. No, you're not. Actually, you canceled yourself because you tried to come after me and more. Yeah, no. But the questions here, these are the questions that Rowling must answer. And I would say, Dan Wooten, turnabout's fair play. Maybe his employers, they should answer these questions too. Again, these are Dan Wooten's own standards. This is what I have a problem with, and I get that Danny, you may agree with him. You may agree with him on certain stances and certain standards. You may agree with him on his stances for royal family, Meghan Markle, whatever. But his stance on this listen and believe craziness that kept going. He said, for J.K. Rowling, imagine if you post this to the GB News. Okay, so, hey, GB News, as far as Dan Wooten is concerned, do you take DV accusations as seriously as harassment, given your support of the Me Too movement? If so, do you believe all of these people that are out here speaking about this, do you believe their detailings where they say that they've gone to the police and more, talking about the allegations about Dan Wooten, which include text messages and other items? Again, you just have to change up some of the wording. As far as this too, why exactly did Dan Wooten end up with non-disclosure agreements at his last job? The Sun. Why did the Sun allegedly pay out over $1 million in legal defense and settlements? I mean, if there's no truth to these allegations, you see how this works. And when people say, oh, well, there's concerns here, again, Dan Wooten said, well, I made mistakes in the past. How do you overcome all of that stuff, GB News? And as far as people responding to this, what do you say about these statements that folks are saying that they're being taken out of context, that you're just basically attacking them and you're using political references and political innuendo to do that? What exactly is your response to that as well? You see how that works. And again, it's not just if he said, oh, well, after we went to trial, after the after the trial in Virginia, even, yeah, I could see what happened, but he didn't. I mean, while the trial was going on, he threw in with the very people that are canceling him now. Eve Barlow is out there canceling his ass right now. Charlotte Proudman canceling him right now. And he is the one that gave them ink for that. He's the one that applauded them, gave them pats on the back, and was like, yeah, baby, let's go with that. I mean, so when you think about it, it's just insanity. It's absolute insanity to think that he is somehow just someone that was duped. And again, I don't know the lady who made the comment. She seems like a nice person. I don't have anything against them. This is me disagreeing because it's not just putting your foot. And there are other people that'll say, "Well, he was just standing up for his friend." When you show pictures of that, are you kidding me? There's always an excuse for this, but for years, it's about the standard. The standard was that people are guilty when they are accused. When you turn around and you say, "Well, that's not the standard we should carry anymore because you've been accused." I mean, how do people write that in their minds? I'm not talking about a Wooten. I'm talking about you. Like, how do you write that and just say, "Well, he somehow learned his lesson"? No, he didn't learn anything from it. He just suddenly found himself accidentally caught in the same mousetrap that he had said. He thought he'd get other people. He thought he could do this with impunity. But again, that's not how this works. If they are indeed false allegations, that's how this culture works. They will accuse and they will destroy you. It happens like this every single time. And, it's crazy because, like, Twitter in itself is a listen and believe platform. That's why people want to go back and they hate males. They hate men. They automatically defer to people who allege. So, if it's crazy in this day and age because you could see why there was a case in one of the colleges where a male and female, they ended up having relations. And after that, the guy apparently was so afraid that he was going to be falsely accused the next day that he went out and he accused the female first. That's crazy. That is crazy. But that's the kind of culture that is created by people like Dan Wooten. People that they're so afraid that just regular consensual stuff that happens, that you have a race to accusation because people believe accusation. I mean, look at it again. Like Jonah Hill is a perfect example. You can think whatever you want about those messages there, but I'm telling you, those messages, when you look at them, you were talking about therapeutic exercise. Jonah Hill was paying the bills for that Sarah Brady. He paid for her bills to live and her therapy and everything else because they broke up. He was paying for her to live for the better part of a year. That came out in text messages. But you had the weaponization of therapy exercises. And therapy exercises don't make you look like a good person either. When you're talking about, like, if you have a violation of trust and you come out and you say, "Yo, to end up trusting you, I need this, that, and the other," some of that stuff is going to sound very extreme. It is. I can tell you that with 100% certainty because I've seen those exercises in practice in real life. But you saw how the accusations came up. He was accused. People didn't have any reference point. And even after the clarification, it didn't matter because the accusation is already pressed and people will believe automatically that this makes you some kind of monster. Forget anything that comes up either in the aftermath, because the follow-up articles, or the follow-up information, they don't get all that press. It's a rush to condemnation. It's a rush to this mass media lynch mob mentality, and it is wrong. My problem here is that when people suddenly have, or when they're accused and they have this epiphany that, hey, this stuff is wrong. Yeah, it's been wrong the whole time. You're just suddenly coming around to that. Why is that? Oh, yeah, because somebody tried to ruin your life. Huh. I'll show you something funny too in a second. Heather, thanks for the 5 there. Every time a member of Team Turd goes down, another one bites the dust. Oh, yeah, another one bites the dust myself. Exactly. Plays in my head. Another one down. John, thanks for the 20 there. I may have just opened mouth, insert foot. Wifey likes to watch these videos of men experiencing time of the month pains with electrostimulators. Told her I thought I could handle it. She's now ordering one on Amazon. Run, John, run. When that stuff comes up, I say, here's my answer to all of that. I have no idea what it's like to be a female, and I am sure that dealing with being a female is horrible sometimes. Horrible. Being a man can be rough too sometimes when you when you have, when you get kicked in the and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's no good all the way around. I don't want to compare, oh man, pain of this to pain of that. It's all horrible and it's all painful. Yes, and I don't know what it's like to be a female. I will go with that. I I'd never claim that either. Give me 1 second. I want to show you something really funny. Give me 1 minute. I'm finding something. Dead Punk actually created something very funny. I want to show it to you. 1 second here. I'm clipping it out, so just give me a minute. I've been wanting to show this off. I think it's funny. I've been talking about working out and stuff lately, getting in better shape. And Dead Punk created the funniest thing. Here it is. All right, I got it. So I want to show you this because it is really funny, and I haven't had a chance to show it off yet. It's a little blurry. My screen is blurry a little bit, but it's still okay. You'll enjoy it anyway. So here, check this out. Dead Punk is hilarious, by the way. So here we go. All right. So you got this start out. Here, Tug, you can see his little pickle shirt. Again, excuse a little blur on my screen for the share for some reason. You can see that little pickle fizz ad. He's like, hey there, sweetie. Want to help Dad get in shape for the summer? It's like, okay. But you got to do exactly what I say. So the next day, look, lifting donuts. Check that out. Tug-a-palooza. Tug rules. Come on, move that weight, you bum. You're a wrecking machine. Get the Rocky montage going on. We tried working the medicine ball, but I don't think Dad was ready for that level of exercise. Boof, you see it hit. Walk it off, you bum. Much better doing push-ups. Unfortunately, Dad didn't do. So you can see we couldn't find anyone to assist with this part of your training. So we got this blue. Well, somebody says, what the, you bum? Next, we couldn't get a live chicken. So we had Dad chase baby umbrella girl with a bucket of fried chicken on her big wheel. So you can see, fried chicken. I'm going to get that. You're going to eat lightning and cause a mudslide, you bum. Are you sure about this, little umbrella girl? She's like, yeah, trust me. You got it going on. I saw this in a movie once. So look, the next day, 5 minutes later, doom, 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 doom. Wait a minute, she said. This is how the movie ends? What a ripoff. I like it. I thought that's funny. I also like the Tug in Training rookie card. I actually thought that was funny too. Dead Punk, man, props to him. He creates some pretty good stuff. Give me a minute. We also have the legendary rookie card. Check this out. Man, I look good there. Look at that. Back when I joined the Globetrotters, bam! Look at my fro. Oh, I look so good. I love this stuff. Look at it go down with the big sideburns. I love it though. Dead Punk, again, props to Dead Punk. He creates some of the funniest stuff. The fro, I know, I love it. But anyway, so I just think when we look through all of this, we talk about things that are going on. Again, there are multiple moving parts to something. And I can say with certainty, again, I don't believe anything that people say anymore. Unfortunately, I don't question people who are just out there wanting to have support, by the way. It's not, I don't want to pry into your life. I don't want to know about people's, the horrors in divorce and stuff, like all of that. The thing is that people, when a person weaponizes something, they're the ones. Like I don't like it when the press delves into proceedings, and they just throw out something haphazardly, and they're like, "Oh, look at this! This proves X, Y, or Z." I think that's a horrible way of going, because family courts, all of that stuff. It's nasty. It is nasty. There are no real rules. There's no real evidentiary process that has to be set down. People allege a lot of things about just a lot of horrible stuff, and they'll try. They try anything to win. You're playing at high stakes. You have finances. You have kids. You have people who they've hurt, betrayed, whatever. But when that person themselves ends up weaponizing something, that's when it becomes a problem. It's not about empathy. See, people confuse that so much, and the Dan Wootens have been the people that have taken that and really manipulated the public with it, because people confuse giving that virtual hug and support to somebody with standing behind an accusation and burning another person's life down. And it's very simple to do that. I mean, it's very simple. Like it's the easiest thing to go along with the herd. Haha, H-E-R-D, H-E-A-R-D. But it's easy to just go along with that, because you're going to get a lot of back pats. You're going to get a lot of, oh, bravo, golf clap. Oh, yes, you listen and believe. But unfortunately, like I said, sooner or later, people will get accused of something. They'll get accused of something horrendous, because it's low effort. Like some of the crazy shit people try to link to myself. I'm like, what in the God's name are you talking about? That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. But it doesn't matter, because that is the internet these days. So when Dan Wooten, when again, his statement about fighting back against the current culture of accusation, he is correct in that statement. But these statements are manipulation. Because he built the very thing he's saying, no, I've spent all these years combating it. Like, that's the thing that bothers me. When a guy, when he's telling us that he stands against quote unquote woke culture, what is that supposed to mean these days? Again, you have all these arguments about that term being hijacked, but everybody knows what that means now. It's amongst other things, that is a culture of cancellation. That is what people are saying that they stand against. I stand against destroying people's lives based on nothing. And that's not who Dan Wooten is. It's essentially, the weaponization of politics or specific types of social statements. It does get you followers and backing too. And again, Dan has made a lot of money with that. I mean, he's collected quite a few funds, and people do deserve due process. I'm not arguing that point either. I very much think that you should be able to go out. You should be able to confront your accuser. You should be able to clear your name. Unfortunately, people like Dan have created a culture where 99% of us cannot fight back against accusers because we can't afford it. How many of you, if you found yourself accused of something horrendous, what you're going to find, first of all, is the law, they don't care about what happens to you. They don't care in the least. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to fight that in court. Well, the costs are outrageous. If you look at the amount of money, like look at some of the lawsuits that have come up. Okay, Nate the lawyer's lawsuit, for example. Again, different kind of accusation, but it's still an accusation. When you look at what Chris Boozy had to say about him, he was trying to destroy his life, destroy his career, take everything down based on this idea that he was corrupt, some kind of a monster. You know, he did X, Y, and Z. And when he wants to fight back, it costs a substantial amount of money. I mean, 150,000, depending on how many people that he wants to fight against. Again, when you get past the cease and desist bullshit, when you get into some real stuff, when you wade into it and you start having to throw, you know, these veritable barrage of punches, yeah, it costs even more. That the Vic Mignogna case was a very good illustration. You know, he raised over $250,000. He didn't get past the anti-slap portion. They said, you know, essentially destroying the man's life was free speech. Going in and calling him the worst things in the world, calling him a child enthusiast, let's say, contacting conventions, trying to destroy his life. That was just free speech, and it ate all of that money and more. $250,000, not to even get to the real litigation. Like, how many people can afford that? And that's the problem. That's one of the standards that really bothers me about this. Remove the Dan Wootens from this. I mean, remove rather the Johnny Depps from the Dan Wootens in there, and remove the journalists and other people from the Dan Wooten statement. When you look at what they were doing when they were setting up this culture, it's something that just a regular average person, if you are confronted with a falsity or false allegations, how do you ever defend yourself? And the simple answer is you don't. Most people just eat it. They have to go along with it. Sometimes, sometimes with the most horrific results. I mean, these are life ruination tactics. They're not tactics when people call you terrible things online, the intent is not to just call you a name. If a person wants to call you a jerk or an a-hole or something, that's one thing. But when they call you these other things, when they call you a sexist, a racist, when they call you a phobe, and then they go further and they start these allegations, they're not just meant to be a demeaning label. They are meant to have consequences. And people like Dan Wooten, they use them like a sword. And like I said, it is so damaging what was happening there. Dreadnought, thanks for two. Dan was the poster child of creating cancellations. Indeed, that is very, very true. Boo, thanks for the two. Any news on Nick's lawsuit? I haven't kept. There have been some updates on it, but I haven't kept up. Like, I had a lot of stuff going on, and it hit this lull portion, and I did not keep up with everything. I know that from what I understand, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, the hopes for an easy dismissal of it has actually continued forward. So it didn't just get thrown out of court. So, I mean, it's meant, the one thing, okay, here's a statement that I think is that people need to hear too. Okay. There's a lot of people that talk about like Rumble. Oh, if you have problems these days, move over to Rumble, right? That platform, it'll protect you. You're not going to get shut down. Well, the problem is that's not actually true. So the guy that is being sued there, he actually wrote to Rumble and he complained about coverage, what was happening with him, and he managed to get some videos pulled down. There was somebody that we posted about that. I'm looking for it right now. I saw it a few days back, but that's been one of my biggest problems. Oh, here it is. Okay. Give me a second. I'm going to save this because I want to show you. I want to show you what's happening. Like when people are like, man, if you have any problem with what happens there, just move over to this platform. This platform is one for free speech. Yeah, check this out here. Let me show you something here. I think this is again a very good talking point. So this is a comment. This is to another person. So my name is Nick. I work for Rumble. We've received a complaint that personal information has been shared without consent in 2 of your videos. Private email shared, private email account. So all this stuff. I mean, again, when you have emails and everything else that's being shared, when you're talking about this, what you're having DMCA. This is either my information or that belongs to me. And they're saying, I'll remove the violating content or we're going to take it down. They don't have a process for complaining about material getting removed. They don't have something where you can go in and say, no, this is fake. Like, in fact, I ran into that with locals. I posted a video. The same person complained about that, and it was taken down. No process, no one to engage with. It was just, yeah, we took that down. You're bad, and there was no one to talk to. Now, you have a person that you can speak to if you're a larger content creator. So I engaged the person that I could speak to after I had tried to get a hold of somebody that was part of that, and it got nothing done. They're like, yeah, okay, we see the problem here, blah, 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 but it didn't fix anything. So, anyway, I thought that, as you're talking about it, that stuff is, I know that there's no platform that is going to be open-ended, just free speech, absolute, or anything like that either. That is some pipe dream, but you need at least the illusion of an appeal process. Come on, I get that places are afraid that they're going to get sued and more, but that's the problem. It turns into the very thing that people have an issue with. I want a platform where we can, talk about these cases. That's a problem with covering cases too. When you're covering a case, like, hey, that's something that was misused in the entirety of the Depp trial. Like, you would have people go in, and if you shared I shared a court document, there'd be like a 1 million emails shown in that thing. Well, if it had an email address to it, people would try to false flag that, and it would get false flagged sometimes. They would hit a document, and you go in, and you could possibly get it reinstated, But that's something that is a common tactic that is used. People file false takedown requests saying they own stuff and everything else. And it does keep you from wanting to cover certain things too. I'm curious about where all that litigation stands though. Like I said, I haven't caught up with it in a hot minute. I need to go in. I need to catch myself up on everything. Rumble's riddled with bugs. I mean, the idea of it's just like Twitter. people want a free speech. And again, the extremes people, here is the problem. When people, they want to test that automatically, and they'll want to engage in the worst actions possible sometimes. So absolute free speech, that's not gonna happen. It's just not. But the idea, when you hear about things like freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, that's shadow banning. That's not cool. That shouldn't happen. When you see all the bannings that are taking place, there's a lot of word exercises that are happening. But many of these places, they're saying, yes, we believe that X, Y, and Z have take place. We're an alternate to these platforms. When in reality, they don't have the same tools that the platforms that they say that they're going to be a better version of. They don't even, they're not equipped to handle what's going to come there. And the worst part about that is it's just like on Twitter, they don't listen to any feedback from it. Again, if you're open and you want to change that, like that, I want a Rumble to succeed. I don't want it to become I just want a platform where we can talk about whatever. We don't have to censor word. Like when you're reading through a freaking court document, you don't actually have to censor things out. You don't have to try to take parts of it and, and pretend, or you don't have to like shorten people's names and more. But unfortunately, that is the reality to almost every platform out there. But anyway, all right, it's been a good stream. We've covered a lot. I think if we don't end up hitting if more of this doesn't come up, I've been following this. I notice one of the reasons I'm covering this stuff, it again, is an object lesson. The whole Dan Wooten thing is an object lesson. It's telling you the dangers of all of that. Plus, it's keeping you apprised of what's going on with it. Now, I'll continue to cover that, but at the same time, if there's not new things on it, I do want to talk about what's happening with. The Aquaman stuff. That's crazy. Like I've done a couple of videos on that. Like, I mean, it is crazy because you have confirmation about, like, Warner denied all of these problems. They denied them flat out. And then you're finding out about three different reshoot processes and more. I mean, it's a crazy story. So if nothing new comes up, we will cover that sooner or later anyway. And it is much more involved than you can really just set down in an 8 to 10 minute video. So we'll either hit that or we'll hit something. But anyway, I'm gonna let you out of here now. I appreciate you folks being here. I'm gonna go eat, goof off. Until next time.